Welcome back to the news today. This is One on One. Well, as the many Israeli political parties begin their election campaign, some of the questions that have emerged are how much it will cost the country and why the nation is going to vote at all. Well, Shmuel Ben-Tovim has had a diverse career in both the private and public sectors. From 2005 to 2010, he worked at the Israeli Embassy in London as Minister of Economic Affairs, and he joins us now. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's begin with that question now. As the public is looking at why we're going to elections or asking that question, what's your answer to that?
Look, if you look from economic point of view, there is no reason. On the contrary, you can count more damages than benefits from going to early elections.
Economic impact, you mean, or the cost of the election?
I would start with maybe some of the terms that are very commonly used when you talk to business people. They are looking for consistency, continuity, assurance, confidence, and all these doesn't live very well together with elections, because elections, first of all, you know for sure that all the processes that has begun before the elections are putting on the side and waiting for the results. And then a new government comes in, probably new ministers in many ministries, and before new policies are crystallized, nothing happens. So you can expect up to 1 year of delay in most of the major policies that the government was contemplating to adopt before it was dissolved.
Well, that sounds significant. I mean, shouldn't the average Israeli be upset with that prospect, that things are more or less on hold economically for a year?
I believe so. It affects the Israeli citizens from a couple of aspects. First of all, which is not maybe directly felt, is how the external world look at the Israeli economy. And again, what they're looking for is continuity and consistency and so on, and they have to sit to wait to see if it happens. But more importantly, the last government, maybe it took it too long, but finally in the last few months, they agreed that something has to do with the high cost of living in Israel. If you talk about housing or groceries or services, etc., etc. And they've begun finally, again, too late, but finally, to make some moves to the right directions. Now, this has also been put to a hold, like everything else.
Well, there's been a lot of messages put to the public recently in this last week by various politicians now campaigning. First of all, I want to ask you, as Prime Minister Netanyahu now, he's been praised for a lot of his economic initiatives over the years. Why did he choose to go to elections knowing this impact or knowing that it may hurt the economy here?
If I can play a political commentator for a minute, I think he hopes that most of the blame will be put on the outgoing finance minister, Yair Lapid.
What would you say about his performance, Yair Lapid? He came into this role, many thought this would be a major challenge for him. What do you say about less than 2 years now that he held the job?
Yes, I'm not too enthusiastic about his performance for two main reasons. First of all, because he was inexperienced and even not with the right formal education in economics. I was expecting him to listen to the experts. And knowing the Ministry of Finance quite well, and other ministries, and of course the Bank of Israel, there's a lot of expertise and know-how accumulated there. So I was expecting him to listen more to people who are more experienced and more knowledgeable than him. On the other hand, and you have mentioned Prime Minister Netanyahu and his economic record while being finance minister and later prime minister is also quite impressive. But he has totally silenced in the last 2 years. He was letting Mr. Lapid make the mistakes. You didn't feel that he's giving him a helping hand.
What mistakes specifically?
You know, the most notable one, of course, is a zero VAT on new housing.
A major point of contention in this last government.
Yes, which he knew that it's not the right thing to do. All the advisors said that this is the wrong thing to do. And
why is that? Why is it the wrong thing to do?
Because it will affect a very, very small number of housing units in very, very limiting conditions. And the one thing that everyone agrees should be done is look at the basic rules of economy, supply and demand. If prices go up, that means that there is more demand than supply. So the first thing to do, and this has been talked for 2 years, is build more, make more housing units available.
To lower the cost of living.
To lower the cost.
I mean, this has been a central theme in the campaign, likely to be a central theme in this upcoming campaign. The cost of living, it's hurting many Israelis, probably most.
It is, but everyone agrees that this is the problem, but not much has been done. And the housing is exactly, if you look at the campaigns in the last elections 2 years ago, you'll see everyone talking about putting more housing units into the market, increasing the supply to lower the prices.
But it's beyond,
what has been done?
housing.
Nothing.
It's food, it's fuel, it's
Yes.
really the cost of living. I mean, what can be done?
Look, first of all, competition. The Israeli market is not competitive enough. There are too many monopoles and cartels and unilateral arrangements with importers, with manufacturers.
Speaking of that, an emerging, returning political player here, Moshe Calculon, he's come out now claiming that, yes, all the money is in the hands of cartels and groups such as what you mentioned now. Is that true?
Look, I think there is great truth in it, and he at least has the credit for taking one segment of the market, cellular phones, and trying to introduce competition, and he was extremely successful.
We've seen the benefit of. Yes, prices have plummeted.
Yes, but I must warn him that doing the same in the energy market, electricity, housing, etc., is not that easy, although at least he can show some record of success. So maybe he knows what to do. I'm not sure you'll be giving enough political power to do everything.
Well, after the finance minister, Yair Lapid, was removed from his position now just a week ago, more or less, where does that leave the country now without a finance minister? How does that affect, in the short term, the economic
In the short
performance?
term, there is Netanyahu as acting finance minister with no legislation power because the Knesset can't do actually anything, so his hands are quite limited. And I think that what is even more dangerous is that government doesn't have in the next year, because we didn't have an approved budget, we don't have the budget as a central tool of policy. So you can't, if there is a recession in the market, what normally governments will do is pour more money into the economy. The government can only spend 1/12 of the budget of last year, and that's the limit.
Is that just the beginning of the effect on next year's budget, this whole process that's playing out now?
This will be for sure until March. Then we'll have elections and coalition negotiations, and before June there will not be a government, and probably before July and August, to be optimistic, a new budget. So for at least 7 or 8 months, you will have what they call an automatic pilot budget that has nothing to do with the current affairs, but only it's a reflection of the history of last year. And this is not how you run economies.
Again, the campaign now, it's seeming like you're giving us bad news here about what this means for the pocket of the average Israeli. People should be upset by this. Again, it sounds like this is an issue that should feature largely in this upcoming election.
I think the lesson for the voter is to try to elect a more stable government that can hold 4 years, that will have in the key economic positions people who would know their job and what to do with the economy. And if this happens, it gives a ray of hope.
Well, I know you're a former mayor of Kfar Shmeriyahu, a sort of suburban town just north of Tel Aviv, a little ways here. Any interest in returning to politics?
Not really. I enjoy my life in the business world, and I leave others the pleasure to play politics.
But you're open to advising a future government, I assume.
I'm trying to advise some individuals and some people who are involved in decision making, but not names that I can mention.
Well, for now, we'll somewhat hold our breath to see how this campaign plays out, and I appreciate your insight on the economic impact yet to come. Shmuel Ben-Tovim, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for being with us today. I'm David Matlin here. That's the end of the program. We'll see you again tomorrow.